not very old, but older than I realized because midterms are due this week. But I've already had to rearrange my seating chart in my classroom. You find out really quickly who needs to be in the front. You find out really quickly who needs to be on a corner. And you find out really quickly who can't sit together. And usually you discover that you really don't have enough spaces in the front row, and you don't have enough corners in your room to fulfill all of your needs. And I love it when these stock photos of kids in school. Now, Sandy, that's how your kids sit in class, right? Exactly. They're all sitting there with their arms on the desk. I hate stock photos. But where you sit matters. Where you sit matters. And I can remember in college, it was very exciting to me because you could actually pick where you got to sit. You could sit wherever you wanted to in college. And my dad, of course, told me, you know, it would show initiative if you walked in and sat in the front row. That's my impression of Dad. I'm sure Dad told you the same thing. It says if you sit in the front row, then you walk right in, you sit in that front row, and the teachers will know that you really want to be there and that you're ready to pay attention. And I bet the teachers loved it when they walked in and they saw the front rows filled and everybody just didn't sit in the back. But it felt really good to those teachers.
Just like here.
Yeah. Oh! I wasn't referring to that at all. Because where you sit matters. Where you sit matters. And think about wedding receptions. It was a big deal making that seating chart for ours. Now, the proximity to the head table was very, very important. There's a parent table and there's a grandparent table, and then you basically had to rank the importance of all your other friends and relatives. And it was all very, very stressful. I mean, I imagine it was stressful because I don't really know. I don't remember helping Megan with the seating chart. I wasn't very good back then about helping with stuff that required thought or effort. I'm good at that now. I can say that because she's not here.
Amen.
Because whenever I go to a KISS concert, she leaves the state. But I imagine it wasn't an easy thing to do. Because where you sit is important. And think about those big family holidays. There's always a kids' table. Right? And there's always that one uncle that has to sit there. And they tell him it's so he can keep an eye on the kids, but we all know the rules. And that looks like it could be my kids' table. That was another stock photo too. But that's kind of what our kids' tables look like. Because where you sit matters. And why does it matter so much? Because we like to feel important. We like to feel important. It makes us feel important to sit in the best seats and to be closest to the bride and the groom. And once we finally graduate from the kids' table at Thanksgiving to the adults' table, we really feel like big stuff. We feel important. And instead of trying to make mashed potatoes squirt out of your nose, you get to talk to your crazy uncle about economics or something, right? It's a status symbol. We like it when our status is elevated, especially when other people can see, especially when other people can notice. Oh, look how close he is to the head table. He must be more important than I thought. We like to feel important, and we like for other people to notice just how important we are. And that's why things like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter are so popular right now. It's a chance for others to see our status. Generally, those social media posts and they highlight only our greatest accomplishments. It's like our life's highlight reel. People love to display pictures of vacations and wonderful social occasions, job promotions. We like to show pictures of how successful our kids are, or even how smart our pets are. And all these posts and tweets are designed to beef up our status to those that have been invited to our online community. And not only that, viewers are expected to acknowledge and to reassure our status by giving us thumbs up or likes. And in the quest to exhibit our most exciting and our best selves, quite often the missing component is a sense of humility. Humility is the state of being humble. And it's wonderful to share those positive experiences. And it's hard to not appear boastful. It's hard to not make you look like you are not humble. And that we don't want to appear like we are bragging. And this all has to do with the gospel reading for today. This is from Luke chapter 14. It said, on one Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. There in front of him was a man suffering from abnormal swelling of the belly of his body. Jesus asked the Pharisees and experts in the law, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, he healed him and set him on his way. When he noticed how the guests, and I skipped a couple verses, but he was going to a banquet. When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, a host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. And then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who humble themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Then Jesus said to the host, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. So here Jesus is continuing his journey to Jerusalem. He's on a mission. And many, including his disciples, have been with him on this pilgrimage with Jesus as he healed people, as he taught people, as he told them his parables. And today is no exception. And Jesus takes this brave and maybe even controversial step and accepts a dinner invitation to eat with the Pharisees. And the Pharisees were very rigid in their thoughts and in their traditions and in their interpretation of the rules. We talked about that a lot last week. They tended to view Jesus with great suspicion because of his willingness to break the rules and his willingness to break the traditions when he went about doing his work. And in the gospel, Jesus heals a person on his way to dinner, and he asks the Pharisees if this is the wrong thing to do. because it was the Sabbath. And unlike last Sunday, this time they remained silent. And once inside, Jesus pays particular attention to the seating arrangements at dinner. People are apparently jockeying and moving, trying to get the best seat at the table. And Jesus uses this as a teachable moment. A teachable moment about humility. And he tells us that we're not to immediately flock to the best seat in the house, but instead we're supposed to move down to a lower seat and wait. Wait to be invited to a perceived place of honor. And the anticipation is challenging, because what if you don't get asked to move up? What if you get stuck in a bad seat? Now, we should all know that in the eyes of Jesus, we are all equal. There is no bad seat. However, if Jesus walked into our sanctuary today and walked up here and gave a sermon, I gotta be honest, I'd probably be out there pushing people down to get to the front row. But we do know deep down that it doesn't matter. We know deep down that it doesn't matter. We know that we are all equal to Jesus. And where we sit is less important than who we offer a seat to. In our eagerness, in our desire to get ourselves situated, it can almost look like we're playing a game of musical chairs, trying to get in that last seat. But we can't be afraid. We can't be ashamed of where we are seated. And God challenges us. He challenges us to demonstrate a willingness to make space for others at the banquet table. Jesus' banquet table can never be a place that is reserved exclusively for the elite or the privileged. In Hebrews, we are encouraged to graciously give up our cherished seats. Here's the verse from Hebrews. This is from Hebrews 13. It says, "Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. For by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Continue to remember those in prisons if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated as if you yourselves were suffering." Often, people who have been marginalized by society find themselves standing on the outside, looking in at the banquet. It can be very difficult to gain entry. People of color struggle for centuries to get a seat, any seat, at the table. And they still struggle. There are many other groups that are struggling right now to get a seat. Some might feel an urgent desire to deny these outsiders a seat. And it's usually out of fear of losing control. But others can hear the call of Jesus urging us to show hospitality. And this relates to what we talked about last week with control and power. We desire that power that comes with the good seat. And giving any power to others can be intimidating. It can be frightening. It makes us feel less than. It makes us feel unimportant. But Jesus keeps encouraging us to review that guest list and to be sure that everyone has a seat. When we live in a spirit of humility, we focus less on ourselves and and much more on how to ensure that we make space for everyone. We extend an invitation to others, expecting nothing in return. Now, Jesus' relationship with the Pharisees, like we talked about last week, was pretty rocky. He addressed them on several occasions, sometimes even accusing them, oftentimes accusing them of focusing on the unimportant matters and missing the major point in the lessons that he was teaching. Jesus urged the group to focus less on the letter of the law and instead promote the spirit of God's teaching. Like last week, healing people on the Sabbath was more important than doing absolutely nothing on the Sabbath. And Jesus drew the attention of his followers to those. Jesus drew as his followers those who were often forgotten. He warned people to remember the poor. He warned people to remember the widows, the orphans. But it was more than a warning. It was more of a scolding. And he used those examples because those were the forgotten ones of his time. The poor, the widows, the orphans. They were the marginalized groups of his time. They were the ones who couldn't get a seat in his time. Who would that be today? Think about that. Who would that be today? Who is waiting outside the door to get a seat today? Are we humble enough to give up our seat for them? The banquet table provides a wonderful opportunity for everyone. Everyone who wants to join. And the great news is there are enough seats for everyone. And they're all good seats. Jesus doesn't have a kids' table. There are plenty of seats and they're all equal. And whenever we arrive at the banquet table, we are offered a fantastic meal filled with love, filled with strength. And that meal is intended for all who are present with no regard to social status, no regard to race or wealth or even your background or the mistakes that you've made. There's no special section that's roped off for the privilege. There's no reserved seating for those who have the means to purchase a special seat. And as we humble ourselves before God, our goal should not be focused on attaining the best seat at the banquet or the party. Instead, let us open our doors and invite everyone in. Let us allow our guests to select their seats first, and then we can fill in. Let us give thanks to God for providing for all who are present. And I truly believe this is a strength of this church. I've seen so many examples of this church opening its doors. I've seen so many examples of families opening their doors. That's good, because Jesus was clear. Everyone is divided. There are no conditions. We need to be humble and not hypocritical. There are not levels of what is acceptable and what is not. We still see that so much in our society today. Some differences are acceptable, while others are not. We still see people put down others so they can feel important, so they can get a better seat. We still see groups that are marginalized. We still see groups that are attacked. We still see groups that are considered to be unworthy. But Jesus was clear.
Heavy precipitation has been detected nearby.
There's precipitation outside. There is room for us all. Jesus was clear that we better welcome them. And not only welcome them, but give them our seat. And it's easy to feel good about ourselves because we mostly do a good job with this. But this also made me want to take a hard look at myself. I need to ask myself, where does my humbleness end? Where do I draw the line? What is just too much for me to accept? And then I need to listen to Jesus. I need to listen to Jesus. I need to follow His word. Everyone. There's room for all. That's it. No exceptions, no levels. Now, sometimes it may be hard, but we need to look deep in our hearts. We need to tear down walls. We need to bust open doors. It's up to us. It is up to us to welcome everyone, give up our seats, because the time is now. Our cause is urgent. Jesus is depending on us. Amen. As we sing our closing hymn, let's all stand and prepare for communion.